everyone, welcome to this impromptu live this evening. I did promise earlier on today that I would come live with you and talk to you about key risk indicators in a new guidance being issued by HMRC last month. And I said this morning in Compliance Over Coffee that I had a very quick read through when it came out, and sat down and had a good look through in depth a couple of days ago, and decided that there was one point that really I wanted to bring to all of your attentions for two reasons really. One from a sourcing perspective and one from an investor perspective, and I've actually got the document here. In this morning's Compliance Over Coffee there is a link for you to go and download the information yourselves and read it. It's a 9-page document. Excuse me, I'll have to switch between glasses to see you guys and see what's happening, and taking them down to have a read. So I'm going to look like a headmistress for a little while on this one. So what I wanted to talk to you about first was, what is this document about? HMRC have talked for a while about risk indicators for the estate agency and lettings sector and other sectors that are governed by anti-money laundering supervision. But what they're saying now is that they're identifying and making clearer for us where they believe the higher risk areas are that we need to focus on. So the risk indicators are areas that we need to consider on a day-to-day basis when we are sourcing. So what are those? Well, one is that considered to be higher risk is where obviously your investors are from foreign countries and possibly from far-flung foreign countries. So you have to be really, really aware of that. They're identifying that area as one. But key to what I want to talk to you this evening is a new one that I haven't seen identified before and really stood out for me, because in this document itself, and I'll hold it up for you now if you can see it, where my fingers are, is a whole paragraph set aside as one key risk indicator, which is described as being individual and or businesses who should be registered for money laundering supervision but are not, either because they're unaware of the rules or they won't engage with the rules. And what they're saying is that these individuals who should be being supervised but they don't know, or they're refusing to be, there is an increase money laundering risk for registered businesses dealing with unregistered, they call them estate agents or lettings agents, but sourcing agents are come under that, which are unlikely to have sufficient anti-money laundering measures in place. And it goes on to say, if a business discovers that one of these agents is unregistered and should be, they should immediately alert HMRC. And there is an email where you can alert HMRC as to non-compliant agents. So you can see what is going to start happening, and fines are going to start coming and going through the roof. I can see it happening. These have been issued. Estate agents and lettings agents are as they are, but I know that a large percentage of sourcing agents are operating out there without being registered or without having the all of the correct documentation processes and procedures and risk assessments in place. And so now what they're saying is that basically if you find a business that is unregistered and you believe should be, you should immediately notify HMRC. They're really cranking the governance on money laundering in the UK now, and HMRC are all over this like a rash. So what does it mean from a sourcing perspective? It means as a sourcing agent, you have to register. There are no options to it, and in order for you to register, you have to have an awful lot of paperwork and compliance in place, because anti-money laundering is the last registration on the list that I give you on the 12 steps, because they ask you for details of other things. Not registering now really isn't an option, because other people out there have, HMRC believe, an obligation to immediately inform them, because not being registered, not having the knowledge, is putting a lot of your clients and the country at risk of having huge amounts of money laundered through it. And I think those of you that have trained with me will know that I say the National Crime Agency guesstimates 100 billion with a B a year is laundered through the UK. HMRC are the ones that have been tasked with cleaning it up, and they're really going about it with a vengeance now. So that key risk indicator of non-compliant, non-registered agents, that's the first time that I have seen that, and that came out on, I think it was the 14th of October this year. So from the sourcing perspective, they're really tightening it up. You can be reported now if you aren't registered, and you should be. And from all of the work that I'm doing and other people are following on from, investors know that sourcing agents should be registered for anti-money laundering supervision. If you're not, guess what they're going to do? If you take money off them and then refuse to give it back and upset them and they can't go anywhere else, guess what they're going to do? And HMRC's fines will make any sourcing fee that you've got off an investor look like chicken feed. Trust me on that, it really, really will. So from the investor's perspective, this is one of those things where it's perceived by the powers that be that any agent that isn't registered might well have very, very poor, if any, anti-money laundering procedures in place. How does it affect an investor? Well, okay, they may not ask you for proof of where your funds have come, but what checks are they doing on the sale of the property? What checks are they doing as to whether money might be being laundered through the project, the property that you're going to purchase? There are no guarantees that a solicitor will do the checks accurately either. That's why the estate agent, the sourcing agent, is frontline. That is why we are there. So this to me is a really, really key move from HMRC. It highlights the fact that they believe that there are a number of agencies out there that should be registered that aren't, and they are encouraging people that discover it to actually report it to HMRC. And the other key thing that I think it brought home to me was something that I have always said to people, that when we co-source, when we do, if I'm in control of the money, I'm not bothered whether the agent who is in control of the deal is compliant or not, that's their problem. But now what this says is that actually, if you become aware that they are non-compliant with money laundering regulations and you carry on and something goes wrong, potentially, I guess, HMR could feel that you haven't done all that you could do, i.e. you haven't reported them, or you haven't done your own due diligence to the same level. So it will be interesting to see what happens when some non-registered agents are reported to HMRC as the level of the fines that are going to be dished out. And it will be interesting to see how you guys feel about working with estate agents or sourcing agents who turn out not to be registered for anti-money laundering supervision, how you feel about informing HMRC of that when you've gone to the effort of actually getting all of the compliance in place. It really annoys me that other people don't. Have I bothered about it in the past? Not to the point of reporting people. Would I have to do in the future? That's something that I'm going to have to sit down and have a really, really careful thought process about, because what they're saying is basically that if you discover that any agent isn't and should be, then you should immediately report it to HMRC. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about this evening. I strongly suggest, if you're considering sourcing or you're already sourcing, that you find my compliance over coffee for this morning. And in fact, I'll put the link up for this document underneath this video tonight. It's a 9-page document from HMRC. Some of it is about lettings agents, but the rest of it is to do with estate agency businesses and obviously sourcing agents. It's key for you to understand where they believe the key risk areas are, and a lot of them will affect how we operate as sourcing agents. There is another guide from HMRC, which is 71 pages long, which you really should be downloading and reading in line with this as well. But bear in mind that estate agency regulations and estate agency guides are for high street estate agents and not necessarily for sourcing agents. The estate agent's contracted client is always the seller. The sourcing contracted client is usually the buyer. So our point of due diligence is slightly different. But for assessing risks, and for what HMRC perceived to be the key risk areas for us as estate agency businesses, I think it's really, really interesting that they've now identified non-compliant agents as being a key risk, so much so that they've separated it out into its own paragraph away from the other key risk factors. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about this evening. I will put that link to this document in the thread, and then you guys can go and download it, print it, read it, whatever it is you want to do. I strongly suggest that you do that. Really, really strongly suggest that you do it, because there is an email address where people can start reporting agents who are not registered with HMRC who should be, and then we can watch the fines rolling out, because it's going to start. That's it for this evening. I hope that was useful to you guys. I will put the link in the thread underneath in a few moments. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening, and have a fantastic weekend. I'll be back with you for Compliance Over Coffee next week. Bye for now.